You know, there's a special kind of silence that hits during Christmas, the kind that crawls under your skin, makes you feel every inch of loneliness. This past December, I felt that silence for the first time in years, and it wasn't because I was alone by chance. No, it was because my daughter made sure I was. She called me 2 weeks before Christmas. Short call, no warmth in her voice. Just business, she said. Dad, I think it's better if you don't come this year. The kids are older, things are different. It'll just be easier without you here. Just like that, like she was uninviting a neighbor, not her father. Now, before you think I'm some bitter old man, let me tell you something. I wasn't just a father. I was a provider for decades. Every dollar I made, every overtime shift, every weekend project went to her and later her family. When she married, I bought them their first home. Not rented, not co-signed, bought. I handled the payments month after month. So when she said those words, when she told me I wasn't welcome, it hit me different. Because she wasn't just shutting the door on me, she was shutting the door on the very foundation I had given her. I remember when I first walked through that house, white siding, blue shutters, a yard just big enough for kids to run wild, the kind of place that smelled like new beginnings. My daughter cried when I handed her the keys. She hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. She said, "Dad, I don't know how I'll ever repay you." Funny thing about promises like that, they sound good in the moment, but years later, when the mortgage is invisible and the money just flows, people forget who made it possible. You might be wondering why I even kept paying, why a man in his 60s would still cover his daughter's mortgage while she lived in comfort. The truth, love makes you do things that logic laughs at. I thought I was securing her future. I thought I was making sure my grandkids never felt the uncertainty I grew up with. See, I didn't have much as a kid. My father was gone by the time I was 12, and my mother worked herself raw just to keep the lights on. I swore my daughter would never feel that kind of fear, so I carried her. I carried her even when she was supposed to walk on her own. But this past Christmas, that was my wake-up call, because it wasn't just the words. It was how casually she said them. No guilt, no hesitation, almost relief. Like she'd been waiting for the chance to cut me out. And you know what? She thought I'd just take it, that I'd swallow my pride, stay quiet and keep paying for her comfort while sitting alone in a cold house of my own. She didn't know me as well as she thought. See, revenge doesn't always come loud and messy. Sometimes it's as simple as a pen, a phone call, and a decision. But before I tell you how it all played out, you need to understand the years that led up to this moment, because this wasn't sudden. This was a slow bleed, and when someone's been bleeding you dry long enough, eventually you close the wound, and when you do, they feel it. This is the story of how my daughter uninvited me from Christmas and how I uninvited her from the life she thought she owned. You know, people don't wake up one day and decide to betray you. It's never sudden, it's small creeping. It starts with little things, an unreturned phone call, a skipped thank you, a forgotten birthday, and you shrug it off because it's your kid, because you tell yourself they're busy, they've got kids, they've got jobs, they've got a life. But the truth is, respect doesn't get lost by accident. It gets taken piece by piece until you're left with nothing but the memory of what it felt like when you mattered. When my daughter was younger, she used to call me her hero. She'd run to me when she was hurt, when the world felt too big. I remember once when she was maybe 10, she asked me if I thought she'd ever have a family of her own. I told her, of course. And when you do, I'll be there to help you every step of the way. At the time, I thought I was making a promise that would fill her heart with security. Looking back now, I realize I made a promise that chained me to her in ways she'd come to abuse. When she got married, I gave her everything I could, paid for the wedding, wrote the checks, smiled through the bills, stood proud as the father of the bride. People came up to me at the reception and said, "You've raised such a wonderful daughter." I believed them. I wanted to believe them. But small cracks were already forming. Her husband, for one, he was polite enough, but I saw it in his eyes. That hunger for shortcuts, that quiet comfort in letting someone else foot the bill, and she mirrored it. Instead of building something on their own, they leaned and leaned and leaned on me. Christmases used to be different. Back then, they'd invite me early, ask me to bring the tree, ask me to carve the roast. I was part of it all. Then, little by little, I became a guest. Then an obligation. And finally, a burden. It's funny how quickly you can go from hero to inconvenience when people get used to what you provide. Dad, can you cover the property tax this month? We're a little tight. Of course, sweetheart, don't worry about it. That's what I'm here for. Thanks, Dad. You're the best. She said those words dozens of times over the years. You're the best. Funny how hollow they sound when you realize they were just currency. Gratitude as payment instead of real respect. And it wasn't just money. It was time. I drove her kids to school when she was sick. I fixed the leaky pipes in her house when her husband was too tired. I babysat at midnight when she wanted a weekend away. All the while I thought, this is what fathers do. They give, they support, they make life easier for their kids. But here's the thing. No one tells you if you keep giving without boundaries, people stop seeing it as love. They start seeing it as obligation. They stop thanking you and start expecting you. The last few years it got worse. She stopped calling unless she needed something. Holidays turned into transactions. If I didn't bring gifts big enough, expensive enough, it showed in her eyes like I'd failed some invisible test. And yet I kept paying that mortgage month after month, year after year, quietly, faithfully, until the day she decided my presence wasn't convenient anymore. Daughter, Dad, listen about Christmas this year. We've decided it's better if you don't come. The kids are older now. They don't need all the traditions, and honestly, it's just easier this way. Easier. Yeah. Less stress for everyone. You understand, right? Do I understand? Yeah. Look, don't take it personally. We just want to do things our own way this year. And there it was. Years of loyalty, years of sacrifice, reduced to, don't take it personally. I hung up the phone and sat in my chair for hours, staring at the walls I paid for with my own money, thinking about the mortgage I'd be paying again in a week, and for what? To keep her comfortable while she erased me from her life. You know what the worst part was? It wasn't just rejection. It was the casualness, the ease, the way she cut me out without flinching. That's when it hit me. She never saw me as family anymore. I was a bank account, a tool, a convenience. And when she didn't need me physically in the room, she discarded me like an empty envelope. The time she forgot his birthday but asked for help covering car repairs. The time she said, Dad, you don't understand how hard it is for us while sitting in a house he paid for. The time she left him waiting outside for an hour because she was busy, but he was there to drop off gifts for the grandkids. Each moment felt small at the time, but together they painted a picture. I refused to see. I told myself she loved me, that she cared, that she was just overwhelmed. But love doesn't erase people. Love doesn't exile you from the very traditions you helped build. And here's the thing about injustice, it's not always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. It's in the empty chair at Christmas, the unanswered text, the silence after you've given everything. That's the kind of injustice that burns slow, that turns love into ash. So when she said those words, when she told me not to come for Christmas, she thought it was just one more request, just one more adjustment in a long line of taking. But what she didn't realize was that this was the last straw, because for the first time in my life I stopped seeing her as my little girl and started seeing her as someone who had taken advantage of me for years. And when you finally see the truth, you can't unsee it. You can't go back. That was the day I decided something had to change, not for her, not for them, for me. After that phone call, I didn't yell, I didn't beg, I didn't even argue. I just sat there in my chair, letting the silence fill the room. At first it was heavy, pressing on my chest. But then slowly it became clear, clean, like a fog had lifted. I realized something I should have realized years ago. I didn't have to keep playing the part they'd written for me. I didn't have to keep paying for people who treated me like I was disposable. I walked into my study that night, pulled out the old folder where I kept every receipt, every statement, every note about that house. You'd be surprised how much history a man keeps when he's the one holding the strings. There it all was: mortgage documents, bank transfers, property tax statements, proof of every sacrifice I'd made, proof that without me, their so-called stability was nothing but a fragile illusion. I remember running my hand over the stack of papers and thinking, this isn't a gift anymore. This is leverage. For years I thought love meant giving without keeping score. But keeping score is exactly what I should have done, because love without respect isn't love, it's slavery. And I was done being a servant in my own daughter's life, daughter's voice echoing, "It'll just be easier without you here." Easier, that word stuck in my hair. Dad, she wanted easier. Fine. I'd make things easier for me. Because when you strip everything else away, it was simple. I paid. They benefited. And if I stopped the whole tower they built on my back would start to shake. That thought, it didn't scare me. For the first time in years, it gave me peace. You might think I'd be angry, that I'd storm over there, demand respect, throw the truth in their faces. But anger wasn't what I felt. No. What I felt was resolve. Cold, steady, unshakable. Because revenge isn't about screaming or breaking things. Real revenge is quiet, it's surgical. It's the moment you stop bleeding for people who never cared if you lived or died. I stayed up until dawn that night. Didn't sleep, didn't want to. I wrote things down. Options, questions. What happens if I pull the plug? What happens if I make one phone call to the bank and stop payments? What happens if I let them finally stand on their own 2 feet? The answers all came back the same. They'd struggle, they'd panic, they'd realize the man they cut out of their Christmas was the same man holding their roof over their heads, and me, I'd be free. And that's when it hit me. I wasn't just thinking about revenge, I was thinking about justice. For years I carried them, and in return they carried nothing of me. Not my feelings, not my dignity, not even my presence at the holidays. They wanted independence from me. Fine, I'd give it to them, but independence has a cost, and they were about to find out what it meant to pay it themselves. I closed the folder, locked it back in the drawer, and poured myself a drink. My hands weren't shaking. My chest wasn't tight. For the first time in decades, I felt light. I knew exactly what I was going to do. Not tomorrow, not next week, not after one more warning or one more chance. No, the decision was already made. My only job now was to follow through. There's a strange kind of calm that comes when you stop trying to be loved by people who don't respect you. It's like finally putting down a weight you didn't even know you were carrying. That night I promised myself something: I would never again beg for a seat at their table. If they didn't want me there, then they sure as hell didn't deserve the ground they sat on. So that was it. The breaking point. The night I stopped being the victim, stopped being the provider, stopped being the invisible man in their picture. Perfect Christmas cards. I wasn't just a father anymore. I was the man who held the keys to their comfort, and I was ready to turn the lock. From that moment on, everything changed. The decision was made. But decisions alone don't change lives. Execution does. And if I was going to do this, I wasn't going to do it sloppy. I wasn't going to scream or make a scene. No, this was going to be precise, quiet, undeniable. I sat at my desk for hours, pulling out old files, sorting through decades of records. Every canceled check, every wire transfer, every mortgage statement, I'd kept it all, even when I didn't need to. Maybe some part of me always knew I'd need proof one day. Proof that I wasn't just a generous old fool, proof that I was the one keeping the lights on the roof, patched the family afloat. Step one was simple information. I needed to know exactly where things stood. balance left on the mortgage, how many payments were pending, whether their names were tied to the loan or just mine. Because here's the funny thing about generosity. When you sign on the dotted line for someone else, you're the one with the power. And she had no idea just how much power I still held. Mr. Howard, how can I help you today? Yes, I just want a full status update on the property at 427 Maple Drive, balance payment history, remaining obligations. Of course, sir. One moment while I pull that up. It looks like the property is still under your financing arrangements, sir. Payments have been made consistently by you. Balance remaining is $78,612, and just to confirm whose name is legally tied to the loan, yours, sir, only yours. There it was, confirmation. For all her arrogance, for all her entitlement, my daughter didn't even realize she was living in a house that wasn't hers, not legally, not financially mine. She'd built her entire little world on ground I owned, and she'd told me I wasn't welcome in it. Step 2 was timing. Stopping the payments wasn't enough. If I just cut the cord immediately, it'd cause chaos, but chaos without clarity. No, I wanted them to understand. I wanted every overdue notice, every phone call from the bank, every rising panic in her voice to carry my shadow. Not through yelling, not through confrontation, but through absence, through silence, through the sudden, undeniable truth. Dad isn't paying anymore. I took out a notebook and started drafting dates, contingencies, outcomes. What happens in 30 days when the first missed payment is flagged? What happens in 60 when the penalties stack? What happens in 90 when foreclosure whispers start circling? I mapped it all out like a general planning a campaign. Not because I needed to, but because precision mattered. Revenge without structure is just rage. Revenge with structure, that's justice. Step 3 was subtlety. I didn't tell anyone what I was doing. Not a friend, not a neighbor. I didn't even hint, because silence is its own kind of weapon. If they reached out, if they wondered, if they begged, I wanted it to hit them fresh without warning. You see, people like my daughter and her husband, they get comfortable when they know you'll always save them. Take that comfort away and they crumble. Her asking for help with school tuition while forgetting his birthday. Her husband boasting about his hard work while lounging in the house Dad paid for his grandkids, saying Mom said you don't need Christmas, Grandpa, you've got your own. Those memories weren't knives anymore. They were fuel. Every insult, every dismissal, every ungrateful glance, it all sharpened the blade I was preparing. I even drafted a letter not to send right away, but to keep ready. In it, I laid it out clean. As of this date, I will no longer be making payments on the property. You are responsible for your obligations moving forward. This is final. No anger, no insults, just fact. Facts are harder to fight than feelings, and when the day came, I'd be ready to hand it to her like a mirror she couldn't look away from. People think revenge means striking fast, but the best kind of revenge, it's patient, it's deliberate. It lets the other person build their little tower of arrogance higher and higher until one day you quietly pull out the foundation. Then you just stand back and watch it all collapse. And when the dust clears, they don't blame you. They blame themselves for not seeing it coming. I checked my own finances, made sure I had everything squared away, retirement fund, safe savings, untouched bills in order, because this wasn't about destroying myself to hurt them. No, this was about setting myself free while watching them face what they'd avoided all these years, responsibility. The irony of it made me laugh. I was preparing for the cleanest break of my life, and they didn't even know it was coming. And when the plan was complete, when the papers were stacked, the notebook filled the letter written, I felt something I hadn't felt in decades. Control for years. I thought I was powerless, just an aging father desperate for scraps of affection. But no, I was the one holding the cards the whole time. They just never imagined I'd play them. So I set the date, January 1st. New year, clean slate. They'd start the year without their safety net, and I'd start mine without their weight. It was perfect, and it was only the beginning. January came, payments stopped, And just like I predicted, the silence didn't last long. By February, I got the first phone call. By March, I got 3 in a week, each one a little sharper, a little more desperate. At first, I ignored them, let the tension build, because silence is louder than words. When people start losing their footing, Dad, the bank's been calling. They're saying payments are past due. What's going on? Did you forget? No, I didn't forget. What do you mean? I mean, I didn't forget. I stopped. Stopped? What are you talking about? I'm not making payments anymore. The house, the taxes, the bills, that's on you now. I could hear it in her breath, that instant panic, that sharp inhale when someone realizes the ground under them just shifted. You can't just... Dad, you can't do that. We'll lose the house. It's my name on the papers, my money that's kept you there for over a decade. I can stop anytime I want. And I did. After everything, after all these years, you'd just abandon us. No, I didn't abandon you. You abandoned me. Remember Christmas? You said it was easier without me there. Well, now it's easier without my money there too. Silence. For a full 10 seconds, she said nothing. I could picture her face, red, trembling, mouth open, but no words. That silence was the sweetest sound I'd heard in years. Husband, listen, old man. You can't just pull this stunt. You think you're teaching us some lesson. You're screwing over your grandkids. Don't talk to me about my grandkids. Don't use them as shields for your laziness. If you cared half as much as you claim, you'd have handled this house yourself years ago. But you didn't. You let me carry it. You both did. Well, I'm done carrying. You're unbelievable. No, I'm free. That was the first real confrontation, but it wasn't the last. The weeks after, they came pounding on my door, calling at all hours, begging, bargaining, then threatening. Each visit, each phone call, I stayed calm because I wasn't reacting anymore. I was revealing. And every time they opened their mouths, I reminded them of one simple fact. They'd built their lives on a house that wasn't theirs. Door slammed, daughter storms in. How could you do this to me, to us? You're my father. Am I funny? Didn't feel like it when you told me not to come for Christmas when you said it was easier without me. Easier? That word again. You wanted easier. Well, this is what easier looks like, Dad. Please. The kids need this house. We can't just... The kids need parents who stand on their own feet, not ones who hide behind mine, she cried. Then, real tears. But I didn't move because those tears weren't about love. They were about fear. Fear of losing the comfort she thought was permanent. And fear, unlike love, is earned. I went to the study, pulled out the folder I'd kept for years, and dropped it on the table. She flinched when it hit the wood. Papers spilled out, mortgage contracts, payment histories, tax statements, all with my name printed bold at the top. Look at it. Every dollar, every signature, every month. Mine, not yours, not his mine. You thought this was your house. It never was. It was mine. And I was generous enough to let you live here as if it was yours. But that generosity ended when you decided I wasn't family anymore, Dad. No, don't. Don't pretend this is about me abandoning you. This is about you abandoning me years ago, and now you're just seeing the bill. She didn't speak after that. Neither did he. They just stared at the papers, the truth sinking in like ice water. And me, I sat back in my chair, hands steady, voice calm. For the first time in decades, the power in that room wasn't theirs. It was mine. You told me not to come for Christmas, so I won't. You told me it was easier without me, so it will be. You wanted independence. You've got it. Starting now. Pay for your own house. Live with your own choices. Stand on your own legs because mine are done carrying you. They left that night without another word. No more shouting. No more pleading. Just silence. The same silence I'd felt on Christmas Eve when I sat alone in my house. But this time it wasn't heavy. It wasn't cold. It was mine. And for the first time, they were the ones carrying it home. After they left that night, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel triumph. I felt nothing. Just a clean slate, like sweeping dust off a table you've eaten on for years. The mess was theirs now. My job was done. March bled into April, and then came the call. Not from them. No, those had stopped after our last meeting, but from the bank. Missed payments piling up, warnings, sent penalties added. By May, the notices weren't polite anymore. They were firm. And the beautiful thing about it, my phone was quiet because they finally understood I wasn't coming to save them. I heard about it through whispers before I saw it myself. Neighbors mentioning how the lawn at Maple Drive hadn't been mowed, how delivery trucks were showing up, then leaving with boxes carried out instead of in. It was subtle at first, the unraveling, a late payment here, a small debt there. But debt doesn't stay small for long. It grows like weeds, and without me there to trim it, their little garden started choking. By summer, the cracks were visible, the SUV in their driveway. Gone sold, I imagine, to cover a few months of bills. The vacation photos they used to flood social media with. Gone too, replaced by silence. And then the real sign, the for sale sign, hammered into the yard. Price reduced. That one made me laugh. Reduced, indeed. Reduced from pride to desperation in less than a year. Heard your daughter's moving out. Place is too much for them, I guess. Seems that way. Shame. That's a nice house. It was never theirs to begin with. And the truth spread. Not because I announced it, but because facts have a way of seeping into cracks. Friends, neighbors, extended family. They all started piecing it together. Whispers turned into murmurs. Did you know her dad was paying for everything? Can you believe she cut him off like that? I didn't have to lift a finger. Their reputations carried the weight of their choices. By fall, the house was gone, foreclosed, auctioned off. Everything I'd built for them stripped away in weeks once I stepped aside. They moved into a smaller place on the edge of town. Nothing wrong with it, but it wasn't the picture. Perfect home they used to brag about. And that loss of image hurt them more than the walls themselves, because people like them, they don't just live in houses. They live in appearances. Take away the stage and the actors stumble. The husband took on extra work, long hours, lousy pay, my daughter. She tried to keep her head high in front of the kids, but pride doesn't cover bills. I'd see her at the grocery store sometimes, cart lighter than it used to be. Eyes a little darker. She'd avoid me, turn down another aisle. And I never followed. I didn't need to. My presence was enough to remind her. She knew what she'd lost, and my grandkids. They started asking questions. Kids are sharper than we give them credit for. They'd ask her, "Why can't we live in the big house anymore? Why don't we see Grandpa?" I imagine those were the hardest questions she ever had to answer, because no lie could cover the truth. She'd cut me out. And in doing so, she cut out the foundation beneath her feet. You might expect me to feel guilty, to lose sleep, to second-guess myself watching them struggle. But I didn't, because struggle is what forges people. It's what I went through when I was their age with no one to catch me. And if I survived it, they could too. The difference is, I never spat in the face of the person who tried to help me. They did. And this was the price. Funny thing, though, when the noise stopped, when the dust settled, I realized how peaceful life could be. My phone no longer rang with demands. My mailbox no longer carried hidden guilt in the form of bills I paid for someone else. For the first time in decades, my money, my time, my life was mine. I sat on my porch one October evening watching leaves scatter across the lawn and thought about it all. The silence, once heavy and lonely, now felt like freedom. And in that moment I knew the fallout wasn't just theirs. It was mine too, because their collapse wasn't only about punishment, it was about my release. They wanted a life without me. They got it. They wanted independence. They got it, and they wanted easier. Well, they learned the hardest. Well, possible that easier doesn't come free. The fallout wasn't just financial. It was personal, social, emotional. And in the end, they were left with the only thing they'd truly earned themselves. It had been nearly a year since the confrontation. The house was gone, their new place smaller, quieter. I thought the silence between us would last forever. But one night my phone lit up. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to. And then there she was, her voice shaky soft, my daughter. "Dad, it's me. Please don't hang up. I wasn't planning to. What do you want? I'm sorry for everything. I was wrong." I'd waited years to hear those words, but when they finally came, they didn't land the way I thought they would. No relief, no warmth, just weight, like holding a coin you used to think was gold only to realize it's just metal. "Go on, I'm sorry. We lost the house. We're drowning, Dad. I thought we could handle it. I don't know what I thought, but I need you. The kids miss you. I miss you." She wanted me back, not out of love, not out of respect, but out of need. And that distinction, that's what kept my voice calm. "Do you miss me, or do you miss the man who paid your bills?" "Both." It would have been easy to cave right then, to let the sound of her brokenness tug at me, to step back into the role of savior. But easy wasn't what I promised myself. I promised truth. "Listen to me carefully. I'm not angry anymore, but I'm not your safety net either. I spent years carrying you, and the one time I asked to be carried, to be included, you cut me out like I didn't matter. That wound doesn't heal with an apology over the phone. Dad, please, I was stupid. I thought I was protecting the kids. I thought it would be easier without conflict. I was wrong. I see that now. I swear I do. You don't have to convince me. You have to convince yourself, because your choices have consequences, and you're living them now," she cried. For a long time I didn't hang up. I let her cry, because sometimes the only way people grow is by facing their own echoes. When she finally spoke again, her voice was smaller than I'd ever heard it. "Can we see you? Just to talk. The kids would love it. Maybe Christmas. I'll see the kids. I'll always see them. But you and I, we don't just pick up where we left off. If you want me in your life again, it won't be because you need money. It'll be because you respect me as your father. Until then, I'll keep my distance." I understand. That was it. No shouting, no slammed doors, just boundaries drawn clear as glass. For the first time she heard me. Not the wallet, not the provider, but the man behind it all. And whether she liked it or not, she knew the rules had changed. Forgiveness wasn't off the table, but it wasn't free anymore. If she wanted reconciliation, she'd have to build it brick by brick with respect as the foundation. Until then, the distance stayed. And for once, I was at peace with that. Life feels different now, quieter, yes, but in that quiet, I've found something I didn't even know I'd lost myself. For years I measured my worth in how much I gave, how much I carried, how much I sacrificed. But once the giving stopped, I realized the truth. My worth was never in the money, never in the house, never in the bills I paid. My worth was me, and finally, I'm living like it. These days, I wake up, and the first thought in my head isn't, "What's due this week? What does she need now?" Instead, I make my coffee slow. I sit by the window. I read, I take walks, I live on my terms. The money I used to pour into their lives now goes into mine. I fixed up the kitchen, started traveling again. Short trips at first, then longer ones. Places I'd always said maybe someday. Well, someday finally showed up, and the grandkids. Yes, I see them. We go out for ice cream sometimes. We sit in the park, talk about school, laugh at silly things. They don't care about the house or the cars. They just care that I'm there. And that's all I ever wanted to matter in someone's life, for who I am not for what I give with them. I have that pure honest. My daughter, she's still learning, still figuring out how to balance pride and humility. She reaches out once in a while. Small things, a photo of the kids, a text on my birthday. And that's fine. I don't push, I don't chase. Boundaries are like fences. They're not there to keep people out. They're there to show where the line is. If she wants to step across with respect, I'll be here. If not, I'll still be here. Either way, I'm whole. You see, revenge isn't about destruction, not real revenge. Real revenge is reclaiming what was taken from you, your peace, your dignity, your self-respect. And when you stand tall again, when you live without chains, that's the sweetest justice there is. Watching those who underestimated you realize they no longer have power over you. That's freedom. Last Christmas, I spent the day in my own home. I cooked for myself, lit a fire, and listened to music. No arguments, no being told I wasn't wanted, just peace. The kind of peace money can't buy. The kind of peace that comes only when you stop fighting for a seat at a table where you're not welcome and build your own. Instead, I don't regret ending the house payments. I regret waiting so long to respect myself. Because at the end of the day, love without respect is nothing. Family without boundaries is poison. And forgiveness, real forgiveness, only means something if it doesn't cost you your soul. So if you ever find yourself begging for a place in someone else's life, remember this: you don't owe anyone your peace, not your children, not your friends, not anyone. Respect is the true currency of love. And if they can't pay it, then you walk away richer than they'll ever be.